All right, you're unmuted. Yep, we're good.
All right. I'm going to open the meeting of the July 8th Board of Commissioners meeting. I welcome the audience, and if we could, let's do roll call.
Davis. Janat,
Here.
Markey,
Here.
Nye,
Here.
Roloff.
Here.
Howard,
Here.
Craig,
Here.
you have a quorum.
And Dave was scheduled to do the invocation today, but Gary, do you want to try to do it on the
I'll try
fly?
to do something of that.
Yep.
Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to serve the community. Thank you for all the blessings you've bestowed upon this country. Make us all willing to be thankful for everything we have, families. Just come in your name, I pray.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You had the agenda in advance of the meeting. Any additions or comments? There isn't. I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Gary.
That's Bob.
Bob.
That was Bob.
Who supported that?
I'll support it.
Thank you. One last shot, any comments to the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Let's deal with the minutes of June 24th first.
Trigg moves to approve the minutes from 6/24.
I had one correction.
Let's get a support on there if we could.
I'll support,
Okay, open for discussion.
and I was gonna call and then somehow I got sidetracked. Anyway, on my report, looks like I volunteered to help with the recycling thing.
Uh-huh.
I went to the recycling thing and I just wanted to comment on how well it was run. I don't want anybody thinking I actually worked there.
Okay. So Paige volunteered to.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on it? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And the minutes of the 27th, June 27th.
Trigg moves to approve the minutes from June 27th.
9 seconds.
You? Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We'll move to our first public comment regarding agenda items.
News in Benzonia. I'm assuming it's an oversight, but the David Winkle matter that's on the agenda today to consider authorizing a settlement for the claim. That's not pending litigation. You're in pre-suit settlement negotiations with them. And the recommended motion does not indicate that you're going into closed session to discuss a written legal opinion. In the Court of Appeals published opinion from October 2022, case of Mr. Sunshine versus Delta College Board of Trustees. Court, quote, concluded that the minutes satisfy these requirements under MCL 15.268(1)H, which is the one in your proposed motion. The minutes satisfy the requirements under that section because they state the purpose of the closed session was to consider a written legal opinion. So if you're not going into closed session to discuss pending litigation, which is what's occurring, you have to have a written legal opinion. I'm assuming that that's what's occurring, but you know what they say about assuming. Secondly, if you come out of closed session, I know we discussed this before, but the terms of the settlement, if you do so choose to settle it today, should be disclosed in the open meeting minutes, such as we're settling it for $50,000 or an officer that pulled out in front of a motorcyclist and severely injured him. even, and the officer was at fault in that accident, even though he wasn't ticketed. That's a whole nother issue, but I just would ask that don't force the public to submit a FOIA request after the fact to get to the heart of the matter, which is the settlement amount and the terms of the settlement. Those should be placed on the open meeting minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, we'll close public comment and go to elected officials. Anybody here that would, elected officials, department heads that'd like to make a presentation?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Come on up.
Thank you.
Good morning. Just wanted to give a quick update on the Maples.
State your
Still-
name, please.
Oh, sorry. Megan Garza, administrator at the Maples. So I just brought some numbers from April, May, and June. April census was 98.6%. May census was 99.4%, and June census was 99%. So we're running strong. We had 60 referrals in April. We were able to take 7. We had 50 referrals in May. We were able to accept 14. And we had 60 referrals in June, and we were able to take 17, all of which are either Benzie County residents or family members of Benzie County residents. Still running strong at about 151 to 155 employees across all 3 months. Any question?
Questions for Megan?
Yes,
Yes.
Oops, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, do you still have any contract nurses, travel nurses?
No.
things like that?
No,
All done with that?
not since, it's been over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I just was. The employee numbers, well staffed or so.
We're good right now. Still have a little more to do. We've posted right now, it's time for a full-time HR position. I've been trying to do both because that was my previous role and it's just too much now. But we're sitting good. I would be happy at 160, which would give us contingent staff. So it's bringing in not full-time staff, but staff to cover full-time staff's vacations, doctor's appointments, stuff like that.
That's always been my concern. You don't want burnout from folks. You want to be able to give them
No.
some time off and stuff, so.
No, but so 2 years, I've been an administrator 2 years in August, and when I started, we had 96 employees. So over 50 employees in 2 years that are holding on is great.
Megan, are you budgeted for 160 employees?
Yeah. Ish. Contingent employees are a little different, but yes.
Okay.
It's kind of, when you talk about contract staff, they're expensive to have, but we weren't paying for the benefits. So it kind of evens out either way, but these
So
are our employees.
when you say contingent staff, are you talking about full-time positions or part-time as well?
They're contingent, so they don't guarantee us hours, we don't guarantee them hours.
Okay.
They just have to give us at least 16 hours a month of availability. So we have a couple like nurses from Munson that live in town that will pick up shifts for vacations. We have a bunch of college kids right now, so they're contingent CNAs that are in nursing school. We probably have 5. So they'll work through the summer. Our full-time employees get to take their vacations during the summer. They leave, they'll come back for that winter break for a month. So people get Christmas off to spend time with their families, and they leave and then come back at spring break, leave again and come back in the summer.
Thank you
And then
for that.
hopefully come back as nurses after they're done with college.
You triggered one when she said that. There was a bunch of ladies having babies next door that were gonna work for you guys. Did that ever work out in that home?
We've had one work for us. She's no longer with us. It's kind of hard, but we still, we had one CNA that came and she worked with us for like 4 months.
Kind of curious on how the program was working for them.
Megan, you talked about having 99% occupancy. Is that what you mean by census?
Mm-hmm.
Right, which is, and are you working with a 70 8-bed number, or are you working with a different number?
80.
80, because you
Yeah.
added those two.
We added two. They came, so we could fill them privately on May 2nd. And then they're duly certified as of July 1st, but they've been filled since we got them.
Okay, and the two additional beds that you added, that now maxes out your capacity?
Currently, yes.
Okay, when you say currently, is there enough space to grow or to place more beds?
Not in our current building, no. We'd have to add an addition.
Okay, and you talked about the number of applicants, majority being from Benzie County. If you look at your census of 99%, what percentage do you think are from Benzie County or have relatives that asked them to be here?
Between 85 and 90. We have a lot of, the normal time in nursing home is 2.5 years. We have individuals who've been at the Maples for 12, 13, 8 years. There's tons of them. That were lots of people that were in the old building that were still in the new building, or that are in the new building now. And so, through transition, but it'll take time for that to happen. But I would say upwards of 80%.
And I know that you guys are kind of shifting your business model, either looking more at rehab versus long stays, or maybe I have that backwards. I'm not sure which.
It ebbs and flows. So right now we have a heavy rehab. When I say heavy, I think we have 8 skilled. In April, we had none. They were all long-term, and that's why there was little room for admission because everybody was long-term. One of the difficulties in Benzie County is there's not a lot of assisted living beds. So you have someone that comes in for rehab, they probably don't need to stay in skilled nursing, but they can't go home. We're pushing them to other counties, because the wait list, we have 3 assisted livings in Benzie County, 2 in Frankfort, 1 in Benzonia. The wait lists are 6 and 8 months long.
Okay. I hate to put it in terms of dollars and cents, but what's more profitable, the rehab or long-term stay?
It's hard to say. It's case by case. So when someone's on a skilled stay, under Medicare Part A, you get a bigger number. So maybe the reimbursement is $700 a day. But out of that $700, they have to pay for room and board. We pay for therapy services. We pay for all of their pharmacy and any doctor's appointments. So you come in with a broken hip, but you have a cardiac appointment that can't be missed. We have to pay for that. That's part of, we encompass. So long stays are, consistent, and we don't pay for all those additionals. That covers room and board, and then their Medicare services covers all the extras. So it really depends on the person.
So what I'm interpreting is that the long-term resident just has more stability, probably less operating expense that goes with it.
The outside, yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
great. And with respect to your budget, how are you guys looking your budget's through September, is that correct?
Correct.
How are you guys looking on your budget this year?
We're good.
Are you?
Yep.
I know that there was going to be an effort to have not only an operating account, but a capital account and then maybe a reserve. And I know that you guys have been working on that. Have you been able to fund the capital account?
We've started. Our reserve is good. Our reserve is good. We were just at a conference in June. They really suggest 6 months of reserve, 6 months of bills being held to cover. We have 100 and we're at 126 days, I think, 136 days. So our reserve is good, and now we've started working on capital.
Okay.
So, the way it works in our world is kind of our reimbursement rate from Medicaid, because the majority of our residents are on Medicaid, is really based on how much we spend. It's based on the cost report. So you have to be very tricky with that, because now we're spreading that out over 80 people instead of 79. And so you have to be strategic on how you spend your money and what's reimbursable to be able to grow that reimbursement rate.
Okay. And I got communication recently from your chair saying that you would be doing up to 4 visits a year with us in lieu of having a liaison. I guess I want to acknowledge you guys. Several years ago, we kind of set out a map, and you guys have just done a great job of trying to get the county there. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
those efforts.
Thank you.
Tim?
You saying occupancy is at 99%. I mean, and you guys may be doing this. At what point do you look and say, well, it's time for us to expand? Because I mean, a business model, 99%, while it sounds great, evidently there's the need there, right?
Mhm. It's been talked about. It's hard with space at the Maples. I think there would be space if we need a new parking lot. I mean, those are kind of those conversations that go on with the fire department. If we could accumulate some land, maybe behind where like those two houses, I think the daycare recently shut down too. So those
Mhm.
two houses are not used and probably need to go away. Yeah, there's a need. There's a need for more skilled beds and there's definitely a need for assisted living. And if we could get both of those in one spot, it would be amazing. It's just when we want to make that move. We started talking about making a 5 and 10-year plan. But yeah, I mean, there's a need. It's hard. I'm born and raised in Frankfurt in this community. So the people that I'm saying I'm having to turn away are school teachers, firefighters. You know, I make a joke, but the security guard at Crystal Mountain that, you know, used to get mad at you when you jump off the chairlifts in school, but those are the people that are coming into our building. And those are also the people that I'm having to say, we don't have a bed for. I mean, our numbers are consistent. We've stayed over 90, we were 92% in 22. And since then we've stayed over 96%.
And on this subject, you've shared with us before, and I know your chair has shared with me, that you don't really get to make that decision. That comes from an outside agency that determines what the bed needs are in Benzie County, isn't that right?
So it's called a certificate of need. And I actually got to sit with one of the board members from the certificate of need at the last conference I was at because I was picking his brain. So if you can prove 96% occupancy for a consecutive 24 months, you're automatically shooting for 20 beds.
An additional 20?
Yeah, so that's how we got our 2. In fact, the state came back and said, your census is so great. Why aren't you asking for more than 2? And I was like, well, I don't have any place to put them. We just want the 2.
Okay.
So that's in strategic planning. I mean, this is just ballparking. In my head, you'd put a number of assisted living beds and a number of skilled beds, and then you would create the beds to be able to flex. So if we added 20 skilled beds, I'm just ballparking, 60 assisted living beds, and we continue to keep this 100% occupancy, we could go for another 20 and drop our assisted living to 40 if we needed to, but you could go 20 at a time.
Other questions? Appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Lastly, I'd like to invite you all to our 60th anniversary bash. We are having on the 25th. Is that the Friday? I think it's 25th. Yep. Yeah, the 25th from 5 to 7. We're doing a big bash with the residents and inviting in all the public, food, band, fun. The residents picked the band, so pretty excited. All right. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Stones.
Any other reports, Bridget?
Good morning. My name's Bridget Hassig with Benzie Senior Resources. I wanted to follow up just on Megan's comments. I wasn't planning on presenting, but I did want to indicate that when we are taking a look at our numbers in our home health aid program, what we are beginning to see is for the first time, we might be hitting a wait list. And that is because one is finding the appropriate help, direct care workers, and being able to keep them. We have an exceptional retention, which is, I find, surprising, quite frankly. But I just want the crescendo of what we're seeing in the county is I know some of the clients should be in assisted living and they're not going in there for reasons of independence, hyper independence, have no interest. It's that whole process of allowing yourself to leave your home. So adult daycare, higher level of services, expansion of assisted living and nursing care is something this county is going to be right on the forefront as a priority because of the aging out of our population, which is, again, a bit unusual where a county is looking at 40% of its population being 60 plus by 2030. So people, I think,
are living longer with supports. And so we always view our job as enhancing someone's life with adaptive strategies. And those adaptive strategies go everywhere from just engagement and purpose all the way through to a high level of care. So, we've done our strategic planning. This is great to run into Megan here. It was really good timing. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there in the future, that one of the things that we're going to be seeing is a greater demand and increased needs. And I think we're both on that. So, any questions?
Appreciate you presenting.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments from department heads or elected officials? If not, why don't we approve the bills?
Good morning, Kelly Long, County Treasurer. We have bills from June 20th through July 2nd of 2025 in the amount of $425,249.29.
I'll make, to pay the bills.
Gary, any support?
Marshall support.
Thank you, Tim. Questions, comments? Do have one, and Katie, this is probably for you. I left you a message yesterday on this. I noticed Amazon Capital Services more frequently than I remember even seeing it before. What is that vendor all about? And is that a new vendor for us, and that's why I haven't seen it before?
It's Amazon. And that's just who their billing is Amazon Capital Services. We've encouraged the staff to use the best deal. And so as folks are shopping around for everything from paper to toilet paper to Kleenex to pens, Amazon typically is the better deal, and they have next day or 2-day delivery. And so we've went to using them for more of our operational supplies than some other vendors.
Okay. And I got a question, not intended to be threatening, okay? But when you go to an organization like Amazon that provides a wide variety of supplies, does it create more risk of fraud within the organization? People ordering things that maybe are going to be used for personal use? And I don't mean to be offensive, okay? But it's from a risk management standpoint, I got to ask that question.
Well, I mean, it's no different than Office Depot, Office Max, Staples, and Jack Pine. I mean, they have a lot of the same things. If you order off Staples online, you can get 99% of the same stuff as you can on Amazon now, because they're all really linked together at some higher level at the end of the day. When you shop at Walmart.com, 9 times out of 10, it's coming from an Amazon distribution facility anymore. So I don't really see that. Also, there's so many folks looking at these invoices and such that, those sort of things. I've caught, a phone charger before, and I'm like, is this for your personal phone or your county phone? And so we try to be really good too about questioning things that maybe look like they're, I don't want to say off color, but could be perceived as off color.
I know you've answered this before, but for the public's benefit, walk us through your due diligence on how we approve bills.
Sure. So, typically an invoice comes to either the department head or our office. A lot of them are sent to our office now, and then they're distributed to the department heads. Those offices put in their invoices, and then their department head or elected official approves them. Then they get through a route system, come to administration for looking and approval. And then a commissioner comes in for approval, and then the checks are cut. And then after they're cut, they then go back to Tammy for review and signature, and then to Kelly for signature, before they come back to our office, where we then stuff them and mail them.
So we got a lot of eyes on it.
Lots of eyes, pretty big process. Tammy is an eagle eye when she's comparing checks to invoices, I can tell you that.
Thank you, Dan.
And Art, with Amazon, it's set up where the treasurer's in control of Amazon.
Mhm.
I get every single invoice that comes through, and I always look at them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So anytime there's an order placed, you get it.
I get a
Or something
copy of it
moved
later,
in.
and I'll glance through it, and I forward it to the right person if they don't have access to it. So
Un-
I had just one thing.
Yeah, Gary, I do want to say though, guys, I'm not trying to be offensive.
no, I
Right,
know.
we know.
All right. Go
We've
ahead, Gary.
and it's been a battle for us, because, we hate to take business from folks who maybe are within the region. But unfortunately, when you order a pallet of paper and the pallet of paper goes up by over $600 for a pallet, we have to shop around. And we went through some paper debacle. We ordered some that folks didn't like, so we tried a different kind because it wasn't just the quite thickness. So we've kind of shopped around paper to find what people like, but it is also affordable. because just even paper was going up $500-600 a pallet with our original supplier, and we just can't take those kind of hits.
Understood. Thank you, Gary.
I think she just answered it. My concern is if we can buy as much local as possible.
We
if
do.
We want to support who we have.
We do. And
Just have to keep that in mind. I
yep.
think.
And a lot of the things that we need, it's like, oh, hey, we need this quick. We're still running up, to Nugent's Hardware, and we're still, doing those sorts of things. But as we're planning ahead and ordering things, we do shop around. I mean, we'll buy a different brand of paper every quarter just to shop around and get a better deal. But we still do try to support local when we can, and especially when it's last minute items, we're going up, up the road and buying that, even if it is more expensive, because it's in need right away.
Thanks for the answers. If there's no other questions, we'll do roll call.
Not
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
motion carried.
So it's 9:25. We have a 9:30 closed session. I'd recommend that we just go ahead and move into that. If someone wants to make that motion.
I would just know, in the motion, we're discussing a legal opinion and settlement, to add that notice, language in there.
I'll make the motion that the Board of Commissioners enters into closed session, discuss a legal opinion and settlement with legal counsel in connection with MMRMA claim number 2302757 regarding David Winkle and Benzie County Sheriff's Office as authorized by MCL 15.26818, and that the county administrator, sheriff's designee come into closed session.
Is that including legal representation too?
Yeah, they're
Well, it's
noted
kinda hard
as
to talk
in,
about
with legal
documents out there,
counsel.
Yes, Bob, it is.
Yeah.
Can I get support for that?
I'll support.
Thank you, Bob. I think we need roll call.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
not
Yes.
motion carried.
For the benefit of the public, probably about 30 minutes.
You're unmuted.
Mhm.
We come back into open session.
Just say we're back in open session.
Okay, it is 9:49 and we're back in open session. The next item of business would be. Do we deal with that now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would be the outcome of the closed session.
I would like to make the motion to approve the settlement in the amount of $585,000 in the claim filed by David Wenkel against Benzie County, claim number 2302757, arising from a motorcycle accident which occurred on July 3rd, 2023, pursuant to pre-litigation mediation between the parties. Since approval of the settlement is in the best interests of Benzie County and is not to be considered as an admission of liability on the part of the county, but is entered into to avoid incurring future litigation costs by the county.
Can I get support? Gary supports. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Knight,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, thank you. We're going into old business, discussion regarding Point Betsy Lighthouse future.
Well, good morning, everybody. So I do have representatives here from Point Betsy Lighthouse, Chuck Clark and Ed Hookterp. They're gonna give you kind of an update as to where things are at. We did have the bid opening last week, and so they can quickly touch on that as well. And then also this discussion is really being brought back because we had a discussion a few weeks ago at the board level as to kind of where we're at with Point Betsy as a county and as a county board. And so this time will be used to touch on that a little bit further as well.
Thank you. I'm Ed Hookter. Chuck Clark is with me. We're members of the joint committee, although at the time the joint committee was formed, we were in different seats than we're in now, but we've been unable to let go of this project. We had a bid opening, only one bidder, although we had about half a dozen potential bidders show up at the pre-bid conference. There was only one bidder, Walton Contracting from Traverse City. The good news is that their bid is down by $2 million from what it was 2 years ago. Big changes in that is all the things we went through in terms of design. There's a lot less stone in it than there used to be. Second thing that made a big difference is that working with the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, we were able to get a stone drop-off place in Alberta rather than dropping stone off in Manistee and trucking it up here. So those two things, along with the due diligence we've all put in, have knocked the price down. This bid is $7,354,891.50.
I'll take it over, Chad. Definitely David Brinkley here.
Yep. So
If you remember that. Okay, so you look at the 8 interested parties or 6 interested parties, and a lot of them are not local, like they're Sheboygan right area. And when you do that, like we had with MIM Enterprises who did the restoration of the buildings, they've got to send their people up and house them, pay for that. Or that discouraged, according to Peter, our engineer, discouraged some of them from bidding on this project. For Walton, they've got some good experience, a growing company, but I think 11 years old. But they're in Traverse City, they don't have to house. So that's a big cost consideration. We've got, we've offered to provide questions to the, we want to, as a committee, provide questions to Walton. He wants to meet in person. So we're getting those questions together, and then we'll meet with him in the next couple of weeks and go over some issues we have. One thing, as Ed mentioned, the rock, like they're sourcing the rock out of 2 locations, Alpena and also in Wisconsin. Wisconsin to come over by barge, the other by truck, and we want to kind of review that. Staging areas, one staging area or a couple staging areas. The neighbors have always been concerned about the use of what we call the Coast Guard Road. Coast Guard Cottage, also their private properties. Want to review their possible use of that, of the sand. We move from the west end to the north end. So a number of things we want to go over with. And probably is from your perspective, we want to internally review the performance bond. Make sure that's covered, so you don't have any issues with that. That's kind of what I'd like to.
Yeah, the other point, this is the construction bid. We still need to finalize the cost for engineer's oversight.
Right.
And we've made clear to the engineer, because we think our comfort and your comfort requires that we'll go the extra mile and probably pay for a little extra oversight of the contractor by our engineers, including vibration monitoring on the lighthouse and things like that. So those costs still need to be figured. There's still some funding to be raised. The bid specs give us 60 days to choose a bidder. Since there's only one, that part's not going to be hard, but we want to do this due diligence first. There are some technical aspects with the seawall that the engineer wants to go over with the contractor. The engineer wants to go over some work plans, scheduling and sequencing and all that stuff. So we got to get that out of the way, but we're pretty hopeful that these guys can do the work. They're currently have a multi-million-dollar project they're working on at the Discovery Pier in Traverse City. They're also working with the state on the state park project there, which includes a bridge over a creek and some other things. So they're working some larger projects, and they're working with state projects. So we think they can do it, but we want to dot all the i's and cross all the t's.
And that decision to come back here for.
Right. Funding, we anticipate that there's probably another $2 million to be raised. And we're hopeful, but not overconfident with that. That's a lot of money. But we think we've done everything right over the, whatever it is, 55 years we've been trying to make this project work. And it also helps that the state, the county, and the township have all stepped forward with some funding. So we're hopeful, but when you're talking 6-7 figures, it's still a lot of money to raise. So we think that can be done. And we're, as the schedule goes, this would be shovels in the ground work next spring. And in a large part, what we want to do is get this done out of the way so we can start working on all the other maintenance issues, the road, and all the things that were hanging fire. Was 5 years ago when we started looking at this project. That's where we are, and feeling pretty good, but not out of the woods yet. We can see the sun through the woods, I guess is what I say.
With the board's permission, I'd like to break this down into 3 discussions. I'd like to have a discussion focused strictly on the construction piece that we're talking about now. I'd like to talk about the funding piece, and then what, if any, involvement the county has going forward on Point Betsy. So is there questions regarding the construction presentation?
This one, I need you to run that number by me again so I get it right.
All right, it's 7.
Yep.
354 891 and 50 cents.
This is where they put 50 cents.
I know, but we had a good laugh about that at the
Thank you.
thought we might offer them 85 cents.
There might be some, you can get some clarity on rock and staging areas in the road that might change their cost too. When you had that discussion in depth.
They were anticipating trucking it from Alberta. Is that what you two said?
Right.
Yes, yep. They would, the
barge
majority of the heavy stone would be barged from Wisconsin to Alberta, to the old car ferry dock site.
Okay.
And we've cleared that, and they've cleared that with Conservation District, who now owns that site and is
Conservancy,
confident
you
that.
mean?
Yes.
Conservancy, you mean? not the
Yeah.
cons-
Yeah.
I wish the Conservation District.
Yeah, the Conservancy, yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
not the first time I've got that mixed up, or the last. But yeah, so And that's a big saving.
Yeah.
The original, this company's original bid 2 years ago, they were gonna barge it into Manistee, and trucking it up from Manistee was like $500,000. I mean, we're talking huge stones. Anyway, so kudos to the Conservancy for saying, this is a local project, we're in favor of it. Well,
Glad they opened.
Other questions?
Yeah, does the bid note a project time frame from beginning to completion?
no, and that's one of the issues that our engineer wants to work out with them, so we have that before we say yes.
We'd look at May to October. Done by October. And certainly you want to be done by the end of the fiscal year.
The main construction part should be 3 months or so, but there's all sorts of cleanup and things like.
And is it reasonable to assume that Point Betsy would be closed to the public during this?
No, it may be open.
It may be
We're
open.
trying, the beach will definitely be open. Well, the intent will be to do whatever we can to keep it open, but it's gonna be closed some of them.
Sure.
When they're
Maybe
driving sheet piles.
maybe some days be open, other days it wouldn't
Yeah.
be open. Certain hours possibly.
And that, again, that's part of getting the sequencing down so that friends can look at this and say, how do we want?
Other questions regarding the construction? Christie?
Have any? No.
No, not at this time.
And are we reliant on the engineers to tell us if, when it's done, if it's been done well? Or will that be visible to any observer that the repair is?
Hopefully to both of those, there's enough underground work that we need to rely on the engineer.
Okay.
But yeah, hopefully when it's done, you can see it's done, but
State agencies are gonna be
Yeah.
over our shoulder as well, SHPO and
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Be adequately supervised?
Yeah.
there's still one issue hanging with SHPO, which is that we're anticipating that we will have to document whatever historic is removed from underneath the apron. And so in the bid package warns the contractor that they can't just haul everything away. They're gonna have to open it up, take a look at it, and probably dock with a what do they call it? A 3D sensor device, which is a modern LiDAR camera. So that, and that's part of the section 106 requirements from the historic preservation. You have an adverse effect, you have to document what you've taken.
Will any of the debris or any of the rocks that are taken out be saved for
Yes.
historic purposes to note for?
Hopefully some of them can be reused.
Okay.
But there is a there is a point in there of cleaning and reusing as much as possible of the current stone that's.
Or buried, located
Yeah.
on site. Then there's a cosmetic issue that's come up, but the light of the lilacs. Those beautiful lilacs on the west end may have to be removed and then try to be replanted. Support necessary for the wall. So we're working with SHPO on that.
There is literally no stone left planting this project.
Good questions. Tim, do you have anything you want to ask?
Now, with regards to the construction, though.
Okay, so some follow-up questions. The company that made the sole bid this time and made the bid last time, when you talked about them last time, you felt like they didn't have the experience to do it. Now what I'm hearing you say is, well, they have the experience. What changed?
Well, what changed is they got a 3.3, several contracts worth more than $3 million at the Traverse City Discovery Pier. They've remained in business for those 2 years. They've gotten a state contract north of $1 million for Traverse City State Park. And so they've kind of shown to us, we weren't totally negative on them last time. It was that we had permit issues, and with only one bidder, we just weren't ready to contract with a not entirely experienced company. We feel they've made strides and their bid addresses some of those issues. So where we are now is we're very hopeful, but still want to do the due diligence, which is why our engineers are really going over some of the technical issues. You know, you as a contractor understand exactly what we're doing with buried sheet pile walls, and deadheads to both protect the the lighthouse building and that seawall. And do you know how this will work? So we're going over all that stuff with them to make sure we're right. But at this point, we think they can do it. They've shown the ability to do large projects and to work with, as Katie pointed out, to work with government. So we feel better.
It's just a change of heart and I'm trying to understand. I appreciate the explanation.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
We've been through all.
Chuck, you made the comment when we were addressing this in recent weeks. You said it's possible to keep some of the costs down by looking at a different solution. Part of it maybe being instead of a 75-year life, a 50-year life. That's my interpretation of what you said.
Well, that's kind of into the design. I'll see the design changing, but I see maybe some things being cut out, maybe consolidated, cut down costs, like not using Coast Guard Road, maybe not cleaning up property in front of the Milliken and Zetterberg property that we wanted to, which is a small number, it's still a good number. And maybe some of the staging issues and movement of sand, those kind of issues we want to sort out, which could save us some money. As far as cutting the cost further, I think the cost has actually been cut, as I mentioned, with a design change, actually, because it's black.
Okay.
And on the other end of it, I'd still like to get a hold of bait and get $12 here.
So this number, the 7.4 million rounded off, that is with the modifications you were talking about.
Well, boring, no, we need to sort that out.
So it could be less.
Could be less.
Okay. And what do you think that oversight of the engineer is going to cost you?
I'm estimating another $500,000, but that's me off the top of my head.
That may be high. We said
I hope it's
the front end for sure, you're gonna have to be there more often. That confidence settles in and the parameters for the contractor are known and on both sides, then that'll settle down some.
That it did.
Our instruction to the engineer, come up with a number for us and a protocol for your oversight that will make the Board of Commissioners comfortable.
Okay.
And when we have that, that's their instruction that we know with one bidder with this huge project that, and with the history of the Maples and other things, that you want confidence that we're doing this.
Yeah, the
Whatever that
appropriate,
costs.
the appropriate oversight is everything for me. But Ed, when you mentioned that you probably need to raise another 2 million, does that include the additional cost of the engineer then too?
Yes.
Yes, that's my estimate that we have round number 6 million in the kitty. And we're talking here probably 8.
Okay. And Dick had contacted me recently about using a staging area at 22 and Point Betsy Road. Is that still a consideration or? So the Alberta staging area for the rock is different than what Dick was talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, but
I don't know
with the barge at Alberta, take it over there to M22 by the site. And then from there, move it.
Well,
as
I don't know
needed.
if that's gonna be staged a second time or just taken to the work site in Alberta. But you're gonna need that yacht club property, or at least the property that supports the yacht club, for at least equipment staging, nothing else.
Keep in mind, by the way, because Dick kind of dragged me into that discussion, road commission is going to want a bond in case you have to recover Point Betsy Road based on the heavier traffic on it. I don't know if that's calculated in these costs or not also, but
Yeah.
they've been very clear that they're going to make that a requirement.
There's a line number for asphalt.
Yeah, sure. Good. Any other questions regarding construction? Let's talk about funding a little bit. So you've got about a $2 million gap right now. Good news is it's only $2 million. But let's talk about how you're going to find the rest of that money? I know you touched on it just a second ago. Can you elaborate on that?
Dick is the lead fundraiser on that, Dick. And, no, that he will begin meeting with potential funders at this point. No, if there's more government funding available, that would be fine, but the intention and the expectation now is that will be private donation. And, that's hard, and we don't want to come out here and say, oh, people will give us money, you know, both, there's lots of people with money. In my experience, there's not a lot of people with. But, so he's gonna work with that, and it will obviously require some large and generous donations. We're confident, but not overconfident that can be done. There's been a lot of support for the project. A lot of diligence done in this process. And show that we're doing the very best to preserve the lighthouse, to preserve the historic. And that the government has stepped forward. So we've always known that there would be this gap. We've always known that raising that money until we had a number was impossible. You can't go to someone and say, I'm told, you can't go to someone and say, well, give me $2 or $4 million to let you know wage. But now that we have pretty hard number, say this is what we need to raise. There's some confidence the local community will step up and help. I'm not gonna speculate on specifically what the strategy is, because it's really making contact, talking with good-hearted people, and trying to come up with those funds.
Okay. Focusing on the funding piece of it, let's open that up to questions or comments.
What type of state? You looking for grants of some sort, I guess? I don't know where you go from here.
5.2 million that state gave us, if we can raise that.
Oh,
Yeah,
That was done by Vanderwall.
yeah.
Now we're off the head of the budget committee. That was in a little bit of struggle, but
Yeah, I think they're still working on the budgets, but I
I think.
I didn't know if there was like a DNR passport grant or something like that
No,
we could throw at some of
And
this.
there's not really.
A big chunk,
We've got to have this money guaranteed, if not in the bank, by the end of this year.
right?
So trust fund grants and all those long-term things, maybe for the next project. But here, this is a matter of, now we've got the money, July. We've got to have that money guaranteed. And as I told you before, we've got 60 days to tentatively approve this contract. And then till the end of the year to officially finalize the contract. And we want to have the money. We don't want to finalize the contract, we want to have that money guaranteed. Essentially, there may be a month, but essentially by the end. So a lot of the normal ways we get money, applying for a grant, and we got that money. We got your 250K, 100,000 from Lake Township state grant. Now we really need to go, good-hearted people from the community, and try to raise that gap. So the good news is it's only 2 million, not 4 million. I'm also told that part of the good news is that locks are up 20%. For those who have such. So all that bodes well, but when you're talking that.
Is it too late for a tribal grant?
yeah.
It is too late.
Probably, what's the thing that it's too late to expect, it's not too
Yeah.
late to ask.
Well, a few years ago, before all this really got going, we got $1 million from one individual in the Downs for this project. It remains in the bank. And so I'm confident that something like this will happen again, even from the same guy who also funded the entire cost of the boathouse building. That money's there.
Well, there's not a whole lot of cash in the coffers of the county, so.
Not looking at the county.
Come around.
It's a matter of going to those funders and not making assumptions.
Mhm.
No, you don't go to someone and say, you got the money, give it. It's a much loved site, done the work, and are
Appreciate it.
hopeful and somewhat confident that that money's there, but until it's there.
Having a solid,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was step one, was necessary but not sufficient.
Regarding funding, other questions or comments? A couple from me then, if I could. So that bid that they've given you must be a hard bid.
Yes.
And does that include any contingencies?
We're not sure. There's no particular line number, so that's one of our questions to them. Sometimes they factor that into the line numbers.
Okay. When you have done your own budget for this, Chuck, have you considered any contingencies?
Normally, we put like a 10%. You see all of these things, all these projects, so I'm a little surprised not to see that.
The engineer's assumption was that, for example, on Hammerstone, like, a lump sum of $1.3 million. And so we're assuming that there's contingency built into that. But then they didn't build a separate one into the whole project. And that's one of the many questions we need.
Yeah, because
It's a hard bit with all lumps.
at 10%, I mean, that's $750,000. Then you got another million for supervision. So now you're approaching 2 million. And that could, blow some numbers out of the water pretty quick if they haven't already factored in that contingency. Whether they use that or not is yet to be seen. And can I assume that the contract would also be addressing any cost of change orders or overruns?
Yes.
Okay.
That
Is there a
should come-
premium for those change orders?
That should come out of contingency factor, I would think.
Okay. All right.
And I think.
There's always changeovers to everything.
Yeah, subject to our discussions with them, the answer is that if they haven't built in contingency, we will have to. In other words, if this is $7.5 million, we're gonna have to, okay, we need another $500,000 paid.
But would that still be in the $2 million gap that you shared with us?
Maybe and maybe not.
Okay, so it could go from 2 million to 2.7 million potentially. Because you haven't factored in your contingency yet.
I think very conservatively, yes, that's potential, and then that's.
And he's
something
always
that's
saying
before
2
we
million
get-
anyway. There's some in there.
Keep in mind, because that raises it by another third. If suddenly you're having to go 750 to 1 million more than you anticipated. Any other questions regarding funding? Let's talk a moment about the county's involvement. A few weeks ago, we spent a great deal of time talking about the history and the county's commitment as well as the Friends' commitment, how we got here today. We had asked the board to delay any decisions being made about our ongoing commitment to Point Betsy until we had these kind of numbers in. So what I'd like to do is open it up to the board and let's talk about what I just heard Chuck say is they're not expecting any funding from the county. I have my concerns about that because if you get to December and you haven't gotten that money, are you going to come back or not? I'm not saying that in a negative fashion. So I'm going to stop there. Tim, did you have any questions on that front?
None for me.
Okay. Gary?
good.
Christie?
Oh, I appreciate the time and energy, and I love that we're feeling the sense of urgency, and we more or less have a plan. We have some numbers. Yeah, and I can't help but go back to something that was said in a meeting. This is a county asset, and I would like to see us do right by the lighthouse, and so. I would support, if need be, as you're suggesting, maybe in the 11th hour, if we need to help. I would like to see that.
Appreciate the comments. Brenda, anything on your mind regarding this?
I would just offer, the people who are driving this ship, so to speak, are doing an incredible job. And should they need they're not asking for fiscal help right now, but should they need us at the table or at events or a face for the county to say, we wholeheartedly support your effort to raise the funds, we would be a resource if we were asked. I don't think we should impose ourselves in your efforts. But if there is a request made, I would expect us to respond.
Bob, any comments you want to make?
I'm hoping there's a few more quietly resting folks or entities that are willing to jump on board with this. I mean, you guys have put your heart and soul in this for quite some time. And it's more than just a Point Betsy thing, I think. It's bigger than that. And when somebody brought up the tribe, I've been waiting to say we need to engage the tribe. I mean, this is about some pretty deep stuff as far as I'm concerned. And Point Betsy is a structure that is relished for the boats out in the water. I mean, they look for Point Betsy when they're coming up here to make the turn to get ready to get up through the straits. And it's huge, you know, and it's more than just a Benzie County thing. It's bigger than that. And I hope those folks will come to the plate here before too much longer and realize that, you know what, we need to do this.
I know that in my conversations with Dick Taylor, they've not really gone out and made the additional ask yet. You've got a member of your committee that has some influence with folks that are capable of making these kind of donations. They haven't been available yet, so you really don't have the answers to that piece of it. But I do want to point out that, well, you know, before I make my comments, Dave, I'm glad that you were able to make it.
Yeah.
The subject is Point Betsy.
Yes.
We broke it down into 3 conversations. We talked about construction. It was shared with us that it's approximately 7.4 million is the bid that they got from what they believe is a qualified bidder. That they'll need about an additional $2 million or so to fill the gap of where they're at to where they need to be. That was the funding piece, and now we're talking about the county's involvement. And I think you said in those conversations.
Yeah.
Any comments, questions that you have for the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think raising the 2 million's probably doable. And I know for a fact that Chuck knows how to raise funds, so I think, yeah, I don't think it's probably gonna come back to the county, but like Rhonda said, I mean, any support you would need from us for anything, and it would definitely be there for you.
So I have some observations before I get into that. Katie, is there anything that we're missing that we should have asked or needs to be explored from your point of view regarding this project?
At this point, no, I don't think it's off the table, though, that this is part of the conversation at the Tax Advisory Committee as they explore how we're moving forward as a county when it comes to funding structures and revenue sources. I think this remains as part of the conversation, whether the county is, you know, involved monetarily or not come December or whatever date that may be. I don't want this to get lost in those conversations because at the end of the day, it is Benzie County's asset. And I think we do have some sort of responsibility with this project, whether it's facilitation, as Chuck said, or monetarily, or, you know, what other means.
So my observations are, now that we have a number, I would hate to see us lose $1 million that was already committed by a private citizen. I don't know what that arrangement is, if you'd have to give it back or not if the project doesn't move forward. And then you got 5.2 million approximately hanging out there from the state. What's the deadline on that, guys? Is that December 26th?
5.2 million?
Yeah, the 5 million
Next,
Yeah.
December 30th to 26th.
of 26. Okay. And chances are, if you're well under construction and you need another 60 days, you're probably going to get those 60 days in all likelihood. So you've come a long ways. Considering where the conversation has been in the past, it started, does the county even want to maintain ownership of Point Betsy, to where we're at today? What I heard all of you say or suggest is, we see this as a county asset. We believe, now that we know what some numbers are, that we want to be committed to the restoration and protection of that. We're not clear yet financially what our role is, but the reality of it is come 12/31, you may come back and say, I'm $500,000 short, and I need to have a commitment Doesn't mean you'd stop fundraising, but I need to know that I can count on 500,000 or whatever that number might be. I think that we ought to have it recorded in the minutes that this group has made the commitment to maintain the lighthouse and support the restoration project, so that these guys can move forward with confidence.
Motion to that effect, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, someone can craft a better message than I, but I just think that we ought to have it on record. I mean, I didn't hear one person say we shouldn't. I'm telling you that if I'm sitting in their chair, I'd want to know that, look, if things start to come unraveled, you guys got to understand we're coming back to you. I know you've not said that, but quite frankly, that could be a reality.
We would always appreciate a motion of support like that. Hope we don't need it, but we would always support knowing that the owner wants to own the facility, right? And maintain it.
Well, and I only bring that up, Ed, because there has been a discussion about do we want to or not?
Mhm.
And I think that, we could memorialize it by going on record saying we do. Please.
We're working on one right now, if you know.
All right, well, I'm gonna skip over that
Okay.
part of it. But the engagement part that we haven't seen yet is we would like Walton Contracting to be as excited about this as what you are and we are. For them to say, yeah, we can do it is one thing, but for them to say, we want to be part of this and we're gonna make you proud. And that's big for me. I mean, if we don't have a contractor that's gonna stand up and go up to bat for us, then we need to know that. I know you've been in contact with them and
Well, we're gonna meet with them, we're working on a date, we'll get with Katie on that, we would like her to be there in your building. Let me give you some history, BIM Enterprises was the only one to bid on, building restoration. And, of 10 firms that were interested. One of the things they did was use us as a resource, all their projects in the future. So I get calls every year about, can you write up something for us for project at South Manitou or whatever. So they want to put Point Betsy on there. This is a project I've had, this is why people will gravitate or have confidence in their ability.
And relevant to your comment, which is right on point, I think. After we looked at the bid, which was presented by a couple of representatives of the company, our engineer, Peter Hink, called up the president of the company and said, we're gonna have a few questions, and his response was, hey, can I just meet with you all? Which is evidence that that they want to do this job.
She'll be able to observe that if she's available.
yeah, Walton Contracting's been around for a long time. They were quiet for a little bit, but I got a feeling they would do you right, us right
Yeah, and
by this project.
The subs look right, knowing all that stuff, so, like I say, I'm not overconfident.
So if we're all done discussing, I'll make this motion that the Board of Commissioners supports conceptual Point Betsy Lighthouse Restoration Project and commits to supporting the Friends of Point Betsy Lighthouse efforts to acquire funding to complete the project.
Greg will second.
Comments or questions?
No monetary support, just supporting the project and their efforts. I think that's what I heard from you all at this point.
I do think that's a really good motion, and if it does come to fiscal support, I mean,
Yep.
with the comments that you made, Art, it concerns me that you're throwing out numbers like $500,000. I mean, we're in very serious conversations right now about budgeting, and I don't want that to be reviewed back and
we gotta
well, the
settle.
chair threw out this number and so that concerns me a little bit, because should we have to support in other things will not be supported. That's what happens when you budget too. I am all in favor of making the commitment, but I get a little concerned when numbers are thrown out like that, because people could take that as this is what they're expecting and rely on it.
Sure. I don't think I don't need to explain it. That's just simply a hypothetical, and the motion doesn't suggest any of those kind of numbers.
It doesn't.
Under your concern, you guys understand that was just a hypothetical, right? I hope you raise all the money you need, and the community has supported it.
There's always the concern that you go to a funder and they say, didn't I hear Art say you could get $500,000 from the county? Right? And-
Let me go on record.
No, that's not what you heard. That's why, that's why I want to leave this to Dick Taylor and the funders until that doesn't work, right?
We would have to get awfully creative in order to be able to support this project financially. But what we're basically saying is we'd be willing to support that. If we had to, we would look to see if there was ways to do it.
And exactly that. I totally appreciate it. Perfect.
Are you uncomfortable with that?
No, but I'm glad the conversation was had.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. I think we can do this by voice vote. We aren't spending any money, are we?
Mm-mm. No, we're just
We'll do
supporting
it
the
by roll
project.
call. Do it by, go ahead.
Roloff?
I didn't want to be first.
That's
Yeah.
just how it
First on the
works.
list.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, guys, go forward. Keep us up to date, would you please?
Go forward.
We got 2 million by the end of the day.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
The next item is Housing North. Do you want to introduce that, Katie?
Absolutely. So I want to say about a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, a request was brought forward from Housing North for funding to support their technical assistance with housing efforts in Benzie County. There was a letter that was penned by Yarrow Brown as well as Josh Mills regarding this request. And at that time, the Board of Commissioners, they really took a look at it and said, we're in this state of flux with economic development. We don't know where that's going to go. Let's hold off and bring this back later when we have really figured out what we're doing with economic development. We've signed the contract with the chamber regarding economic development. So I'm doing my due diligence to bring this back for the discussion of, is the county wanting to support Housing North with a $5,000 annual contribution for the next 2 years? Or is this something that you want to see being kicked to the economic development new path that we're on? Or, where are you at with this conversation? I included the documents that were in the packet from that time, which really went over the idea of what this money would do for housing efforts in Benzie County so that you could read that. I also included the letter that was penned by Josh Mills and Yarrow Brown. Just to be clear, Josh is penning this not as the city superintendent of Frankfurt, but as the board president for Housing North. So that's why it's back in the packet.
Katie, before we open it to discussion, early this morning, I got a letter from Jay White
Okay.
that I have forwarded to you.
Okay.
I wonder if you could pull that up and read that to the group, and we'll put that under correspondence. Tammy?
Sure. It's not very short. Good morning, Art. As the president of the Housing Trust of Benzie County, formerly the Frankfurt Area Community Land Trust, and chair of the Frankfurt Housing Commission, I would like to share just some of the many benefits we have found in working with Housing North. Monthly newsletter that provides resources about housing programs and opportunities and acts as a connector to other housing funding sources, organizations, and initiatives. In 2021, Housing North hosted a community land trust informational meeting that involved the newly formed Peninsula Housing and Frankfurt Area Community Land Trust organizations to support our startup and introduce us to one of the state's most successful CLTs, ICCF of Grand Rapids. This meeting served as a critical springboard to the growth and formation of the Frankfurt Area Community Land Trust and ultimately the formation of the statewide CLT Coalition, who will be hosting the Midwest Region CLT Conference in 2026. Annual housing summit that Housing North organizes and hosts each fall. This summit provides valuable information and connection to state, local, and federal agencies to support housing, as well as educational sessions that provide thoughtful information about new trends in housing and the tools we need to implement housing programs and initiatives. At the Fall 2023 Summit, Housing North played a critical role in connecting us with the MISHDA director, Amy Hovey, at the event to help us secure a $240,000 missing middle grant to support our Grove Place homes. Yarrow Brown, Housing North's executive director, presented the FACLT's application to the Benzie County Board of Commissioners for $120,000 in ARPA funds from Benzie County in 2022 to support construction of our first 2 homes at Grove Place. This grant provided the critical seed funding to jumpstart the CLT that has led to our current financial ability to buy land and build 4 more homes later this fall. Provided critical support for approval and construction of the 12 Lake and Main apartments in 2024 by Homestretch that serves Benzie County's missing workforce. Resource of professional housing studies that provide the critical information our Land Trust and Housing Commission uses to understand the housing needs in Benzie County to better target our housing initiatives. Active advocacy in Lansing to assure funding and legislative priorities for our 10-county region. The advocacy led to the enactment of several property tax laws that provide property tax relief for development of housing, workforce housing. They were also instrumental in obtaining legislation that allows workforce housing developers to utilize the state brownfield redevelopment program to build workforce housing. Organize and host the Benzie County Housing Collaborative Groups that meet quarterly to provide housing resources and support. Serve as a regional resource for establishment and operation of housing initiatives that relate to rural development in the small to medium-sized communities of northern Michigan. Many national organizations are just not right-sized to serve the needs of this region. In closing, on behalf of the Housing Trust of Benzie and Frankfurt Housing Commission, I would like to express our appreciation for the county's support of housing initiatives and strongly encourage you and the other members of the Benzie County Commission to support Housing North's request for funding. Thank you, Jay White.
Thank you, Katie. And again, we'll show that under correspondence.
I'll send it to you, Tammy.
So there's a couple of things we can do here. Someone can make a motion one way or the other, or we can open it to discussion first. What would you like to do?
Like to open a discussion.
Please.
Every year have the housing thing in Traverse City. Nothing has changed. 10 years, I'm not saying I'm against them. They're not out there building housing. They're out there promoting stuff in Lansing. I want to see the project that they've completed. I know where Jay's coming from. It's kind of, how to say this without getting in too much trouble, but it's never stopped me before. I feel that, yeah, there's some skin in the game with the city. That's where I see this going. I'd rather give it to somebody like the Fault Group or Homestretch. You see an accomplishment. If she can show me the accomplishments that they've done, short of basically being somebody at the state taking everybody out to dinner to discuss where this money's coming from. Mistia, I know, is a problem, but it looks like John Stempson's kind of figured them out. So I just feel that the county would be better served to, if we're going to throw money at something, give it to the EDC and let them promote stuff locally. Anytime we do something, I want it to stay here, and I want to feel like if we're giving money, that it benefits every resident of Benzie County. I know housing does to a certain extent, but I'm a little standoffish on this one, so.
I appreciate you opening the conversation. Other comments from the group?
I just have a question to that. So is Housing North supposed to be building homes? I thought they were a kind of
You're an advocacy group.
right. And so I think is that the correct ask, to ask them to build the homes when they are supposed to be kind of that support piece to help get that done?
But is that necessary? People that are building the homes are accomplishing the project. Like I said before, and that was my point, 10 years ago, I went to the first housing thing they had in Traverse City. And the last 2 or 3 times that I've gone, it's the same story year after year. We have this big issue and da. And I don't see things changing for the good. That's my point where I'm looking at this. And if I'm going to give money to somebody, especially when it's not mine, belongs to the county, the people that pay the taxes, I'd rather see our EDC do the work.
What if our EDC chooses to fund them?
And I guess we're back to the Maples.
That was not the main, that was DHHS. Just for clarity.
Okay.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Well, they have a justifiable reason. I guess that's up to them. Do you see that coming? I don't want to put a hypothetical out there, but is that something that actually, I thought this probably should have went to the EDC first before it came to us.
Well, let's remind ourselves how we got here.
Mhm.
When the request was originally made to us, we were still re-engineering our economic development efforts and said, let's wait till that finishes before we make any decisions. I interpret that as saying, kind of what you're saying, look at, if we re-engineer EDC, then we really think this request should go to them, not to the county board. That's how I interpreted it. And that's now, as of July 1, we formalized that agreement. So it wouldn't go to the county's EDC, but the newly formed EDC. I doubt they have the money in their startup year to do that.
Mhm.
Appreciate the conversation. Other comments or questions?
I do see the value in advocacy. I do see the value there. And again, where I can pinpoint that is, I think you all know that, I work for the Darcy Library. The libraries have an advocacy group that, works for them and, has really tried to, kind of, bring legislation around. I can see the benefits of that because boots on the ground, we don't always have what it takes to do that advocacy work. And so there is a place here who is working to do that. Some of the things, right, that stand in our way of housing is zoning, some of these things, some of these, I mean, zoning is somewhat local, but even some of the other things out there that make housing easier to put in is always a better thing, right? So I guess that's where I'm coming from, is that I still think advocacy works. I think that advocacy is something that not everybody who has boots on the ground has the time, energy, and resources to do. And if there is a group out there who's willing to do some of that, I think that's a positive thing. Housing is a strategic priority for us. We've seen that. My Thrive, talked about the big concerns in the county, and one of them is housing. And I think the things that we can do to facilitate housing is a positive thing. That's where I'm standing.
Krisky, because you seem to be supportive of this, we have in front of us a motion.
Mhm.
Do you want to make that motion and see where we go with it?
I can. I move that the Board of Commissioner authorizes an agreement with Housing North for technical assistance related to housing efforts in Benzie County in the not to exceed amount of $5,000 annually with the funds. Well, and then it says the funds available in the blank. And I don't know where we would pull that from. Is that something?
Likely the general fund, correct?
Your option would be fund balance.
And that's what I was thinking, but I didn't know if that was an option.
Oh, that's okay. You would turn to the administrator for that anyway.
Hmm.
So we have a motion on the table. Does anybody want to support it? If not, the motion dies for a lack of support. All right, next subject.
All right.
Katie, can administration put a communication piece together, and I'd be happy to put it under my name. No, I wouldn't be happy to do it, but I will do it. Just at least they understand what the outcome was.
Yeah, and I think Yarrow's probably viewing too, but we'll get something to her. So
Great.
the next item in your packet is the establishment of an ad hoc committee to explore the idea of a regionalized animal shelter operation. I've brought it up a time or two within my administrator update, and I've spoke to many of you one-on-one about this possible idea of maybe regionalizing animal shelter operations with Grand Traverse and possibly Leelanau. Our shelter as it stands now is falling out of compliance quickly with the rules of the state. And we're outgrowing that size, as well as we don't have the ability to make that shelter meet the guidelines of Lansing. We're built into a hill. It's a small area. Guidelines require separate entrances for, stray and sick animals versus adoptable animals. They can never cross paths, all these things. And so the idea of this regionalized animal shelter operations is to recognize that we're kind of all in the same boat as to what do we do moving forward. And so the idea of regionalizing for rural communities makes a lot of sense. And so I'm asking for an ad hoc committee to be put together. This would be a joint ad hoc committee. Nate Alger is taking this to his board on the 16th to also have commissioners appointed to this regional effort to discuss this. I know that his board, he's also spoke with a few of his commissioners about it who would love to explore this idea. And so that's what I'm asking for you today. I'm not saying we're going to do it. I'm not saying we're not going to do it, but I at least like to have the conversation. You all recall in 2021, when there was a simple snafu with animal control and the community came out in droves, right? Benzie County loves its animals and they want to support its animals and the animal welfare. And so I think doing nothing isn't the right answer, especially for Benzie County. And so I want to continue to explore options as we look down the road as to what it looks like for Benzie County and possibly the region.
Do I remember correctly that in an earlier meeting, we agreed that you could participate in those conversations? And what we're doing right now is simply formalizing that ad hoc committee.
Correct. So you had said, yep, go ahead with some conversations. So Nate and I have been having a few conversations, and then I've sat down with Kyle Mauer to kind of talk about what he knows regarding animal shelter operations. I've spoke with the shelter attendant staff as well, and just saying, hey, what do you know? What do you think? Those sorts of things. And everyone is continuously saying it's worth the idea of exploring. And so that's where we're at now. Is I'd like to formalize this conversation. Grand Traverse County is willing to put a commissioner forward. I would be happy if this board was willing to put a commissioner forward, because while staff is having these conversations, it does add a different level of, seriousness when a commissioner is part of those conversations.
So offline, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I did. I had a question. Is there a model where a joint effort like this has been successful?
I have not found a joint model for a municipal shelter. Many municipalities are relying on nonprofits now for shelter operations. That has kind of become the norm. There's not a ton of municipal shelters left. And the ones that are left are struggling because of the changes coming down from the state of Michigan. Shelter operations, the way the old shelters were set up, and they didn't even call them shelters, right? The old pound, the way those were set up very much did not focus on animal welfare. And we live in a state of time where animal welfare is very important. And so these guidelines are changing, and municipalities are struggling with how are they going to manage this? And so we're trying to be forward thinking in the sense of what do we do? As far as nonprofits in our area, Cherryland is the one that everybody thinks of, obviously. And they're telling the counties, yeah, we really don't want to do business with you anymore because we have our own future to look at. My understanding was that they initially said to the counties, hey, you got to get out. And then they came back to the counties and said, well, you can stay, but then they quadrupled the cost, is my understanding for them, which is not sustainable for a municipality either. And so that's kind of what we're being dealt with, is these nonprofits don't really want to deal with the municipal side of animal control and shelter operations, because it is very different than a nonprofit shelter. Counties sometimes have to euthanize an animal. Many shelters don't want to do that at all, right? And so trying to mesh those two thought processes together is kind of a difficult task. And so that's kind of where we're left at in this state.
Is this time for discussion? Is it okay if I ask questions? Yep. Okay. We do have a well-functioning animal welfare league,
correct?
Who we've had successful partnerships with in the past. Will they be invited to the table as well?
So I sat down with two of their representatives 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, sat down with them and really said that to them, said, this is the idea of what we're exploring, you know, and you're really the loudest voice in our region. In my conversations with Nate, he even said Benzie County really has the largest voice in this space. And so I said to them, you know, hey, I'd like you at the table. And they told me that they had to take it to their board before giving an answer. And so I'm not sure. They were invited. I'm not sure if they'll be at the table or not. I'm waiting to hear back from them because they were having a board meeting to discuss if they even wanted to be part of the conversation.
You talked about Grand Traverse County. Did you have any communications with Leelanau County?
So they have a brand new administrator in Leelanau County. Nate did kind of run it by them, and Leelanau County is in a state of change right now. They're very open to collaboration among the region. They're recognizing that they need to collaborate on various levels. So there was a very tipped conversation, but not as in depth that Nate and I have had. Because their new administrator is really getting his feet wet on some bigger issues right now, but they definitely want to be part of the conversation. Leelanau County doesn't have a shelter currently. They also work with Cherryland, and they've called us to rent kennels as well as needed, which we're happy to help our neighbors. So the idea of them being part of the conversation is an absolute. And how that relationship pans out is to be determined.
I just know one of their commissioners is very keen on doing this.
I know they are. Yep. They've called. I've had their commissioner call me.
So I did have a conversation with their chair, and his response to me was that they are less likely to partner and more likely to be a tenant of some sort.
Correct. Yep. So they don't have the need that Benzie and Grand Traverse and other counties have. Like when they called us for shelter space, they're like, oh, we just need a kennel. And I'm like, really? They're very good about reunification in Leelanau County. And so the need is not as great as other counties for whatever reason. I don't know why.
And potentially that's the direction your conversation could go too, is that,
Yes,
you know, we don't want to put capital at it, but, you know, we want to rent space from you.
correct. Yep.
I'm just, again, hypothetically.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of it is coming to the table at this point. All the conversations are good conversations until we find the direction that makes sense. Maybe this doesn't make sense at all. I don't know. But I think if we don't have the conversation, we'd be remiss.
And what are your goals you'd like to achieve by an ad hoc committee? Just whether it's a good idea, or are you taking it a step further to develop a model to propose? What are the deliverables? What do you want to accomplish with the ad hoc?
Sure. So I think the first few meetings are going to be really talking about the idea and see if everybody's on the same page, right? Yes, this is something we want to explore. Yes, we want to work together. And then once we get through that, I think the deliverables are, okay, how do we do this? Are there models out there? Who's going to drive the ship per se? How does the funding happen? You know, who's paying for what? Those different things. Where is it even located, for instance? You know, we have just about 7 acres at the base of 669. Maybe that's a potential site because the county already owns it. But then there's other township properties around the county that aren't currently being utilized. Maybe there's a future partnership idea with a township to utilize some of their township land of some sort. So there's a lot of, moving parts out there to then take it to the next step of, okay, yep, this makes sense. Let's go down this road. Okay, next step is, what are the models? What models work? And then where's it going to be?
And forgive me, I really don't know. Does Grand Traverse County have a millage for their animal?
Yes, so we both have a millage, and weirdly enough, we're on the same timeline. And so if this was something we could pursue, the timing would be right for both counties to ask the voters how they want to support this.
Anything else? So offline, you and I talked about a couple of people that you would like to have represented. You're an obvious choice, but you also asked about Kyle Maurer. Why don't you explain your request?
Yeah, so I've spoke with Kyle Maurer. Kyle Maurer served as our animal control officer for many years, and he's pretty well versed in the world of animal control and animal shelters, and he'd be happy to be part of the conversation regarding that. He really is one of the more knowledgeable folks on our staff regarding animal control, and so I think that would be a good fit. And it's my understanding from Nate that he would also have one of his animal control officers there, probably Jamie Kroll, who also used to work for Benzie and is now with Grand Traverse County, to be part of those conversations. You know, from our level, we're looking at it from a, you know, a cost and capital needs standpoint, but from their level, they're looking at what truly goes into the operation of a shelter. And those are just not things that I really know. Whereas Kyle has been in that game for a long time and he would know.
And I took the liberty to look at current assignments from the board, as well as what capacity you may have to take on some more. I did approach Dave about serving in that capacity representing the board. Dave really doesn't have any current assignments beyond his townships, and I believe your personal obligations allow you to do it. Is that right?
Right.
Any other questions?
Unless somebody decides to kick somebody in the head at 6 a.m.
Hopefully that doesn't happen often. Is there any other questions or comments?
How many commissioners you want on?
It's really up to you. The motion had indicated 3 because typically our ad hocs have 3. But if you're comfortable with just a commissioner and staff, I think that's fine as well. But if you would like to be part of the conversation, Gary, we're happy to have you.
They have some friction.
I know you do.
When it comes to how things work out with Grand Traverse County, the health department was a classic example. So I think it's better I stay away. I'm happy with the 3 of you. I owe you and that I'll make that motion if
Please do.
it's good. Okay.
Great.
You want to read it?
Okay. Board of Commissioners establishes ad hoc committee to meet with representatives of Grand Traverse County to explore regionalization, there's a good one, of animal shelter services that Commissioners Davis,
That Commissioner Davis, Administrator Katie
Administrator,
Seitz.
and Kyle Mauer be appointed to serve on this committee, on such committee. Sorry.
Can we get support for
I'll
this?
support.
Thank you, Bob.
Maybe I got kicked in the head last.
You all right, buddy?
We'll open it back up to comments or discussion. All right, let's roll call it.
Howard,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we'll look forward to hearing your progress.
Thank you.
You want to touch on the next one?
Yes, so the next one, Rebecca Hubers is here to fill in my blanks, but the next one is to move forward with the upgrade of the fire alarm monitoring system here in this building. This proposal went before the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee, and they unanimously supported moving forward with this proposal. This proposal would be not to exceed $13,846 with funds out of the 401 Capital Projects Fund. And really, what this does is this is an alarm monitoring system. So take it from here, Rebecca.
Yeah, it's not just the fire alarm, it's the doors and it's the panic buttons. So back in 2020, 21, 22, I brought forward a proposal to upgrade our panic alarm system. And that was approved. It was about $3,500, with half of it being covered by MMRMA. And that project actually fell through because of post-COVID or COVID and the part not being available, a chip not being available for that product. And so we actually slashed that project. And so this is readdressing that concern, making sure that it's monitored properly. When we were reassessing that, we realized that we changed our phones. There is no phone line addressing our fire system. I learned from the building down there that there is a 24-hour monitoring requirement for some places like our jail. That's why we had to move a component from our old dispatch room to our jail. Someone literally needs to be looking at it. So currently right now, whether you know it or not, if the building were catching on fire on a Sunday afternoon and no one was paying attention to the loud noises coming from the building, nobody knows that it's on fire because we don't have a monitoring system. So this would be upgrading that as well, along with that old request for door. And our door system right now is kind of just a DIY alarm system that goes off and we just have to push the buttons. So this upgrade would be beneficial to the security, safety of the building and the staff. I don't know, kind of a no-brainer on my end, but I'll try to explain it more if I have.
So when we have three members of the subcommittee here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does any member of that subcommittee want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion. The Board of Commissioners accepts the proposal from EKS Security for the panic, fire and alarm upgrade project. The not to exceed amount of $13,846 as recommended by the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee. Funds available in the 401 capital projects.
Oral second.
And just for discussion, I already presented the administrator with an application to offset the cost with MMRMA stuff. So we'll do our due diligence to, do our best.
What's the likelihood of success on that?
MMRMA.
They've
good.
changed their model a little bit. It was successful in 21, 22. So my hope is that it's readdressed because we didn't spend their money then, so that they go, yeah, I remember this project. It made sense. I can't imagine not having fire oversight. It would be something they wouldn't want to support. Yeah.
You think, huh?
I don't work for insurance though, so.
All right, other questions or comments?
Just so know that I'm reading this right, it's the 13,846, and then monthly after that is $75.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is part of we pay a normal cost already for what we have to date. We didn't have a recurring cost before, but when we had to do the upgrade to the new style of systems, we started with the recurring cost, which everything's going to subscription, Microsoft, and kind of a bummer.
Now that it's been brought up, is this contract, is this multiple years?
Yeah, so we pay monthly, yes, and it's part of the original contract. Yep.
Okay, so how many years is it for?
I don't know what's left on it. I'd have to look.
Okay, but it's for the remaining term.
Correct. Yep.
Other questions or comments?
We currently use TKS Security now.
For everything. Yep.
Okay. And I don't see any fire sprinklers or anything. And so if our asset were to,
You got a fire alarm and a thing back there. What's that thing?
Extinguisher?
Extinguisher. Sorry.
yeah,
Arm out of work.
So-
I'll kick the door open.
so if something happened on a Sunday, I don't
do
know,
have
we had an
fire
electrical
sprinklers?
short or something.
They
I
would-
don't know, those guys over there it'd have to be big enough for those guys over there maybe to see it
Mm-hmm.
Under its current situation.
under its current situation.
Or somebody driving by. Yeah.
Or somebody driving by there, that's probably what'll happen.
Depending on who it is, though, they might be like, let it burn.
Serves them right.
I want Monday off. Other comments or questions? We'll do a roll call, please.
Craig,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
motion carried.
Katie?
The next item in your packet is the roof replacement at EMS Station 2. We have a garage and a modular home there, and both roofs are in need of replacement. There were three bids, three separate company bids, 6 bids total that were presented to the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee. The reason there was 6 is there was 3 for the home and then 3 for the garage as well. These bids were all reviewed by the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee for, specs and cost and all the things. And as a consensus of the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee, they would like to move forward with Advanced Applicators, which is out of Interlochen, Michigan. And this would be in the not to exceed amount of $24,000 to replace both the home and the garage roofs at EMS Station 2. This was brought to light because there was some damage done to the garage at EMS Station 2. And when we called out a local roofer to look at it just for the damage, they were like, yo, you need to replace this roof. This is not good. And so we went down this road of gaining proposals to do so.
Would someone like to make that motion?
Trig moves that the Board of Commissioners accept the proposals from Advanced Applicators in the not to exceed amount of $24,000 to replace the home and garage roofs at EMS Station 2 as recommended by the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee with funds available in the 210 EMS fund.
Mark will support.
Questions, comments?
Just one, because
Gary?
it got by me. Said there was roof damage from tree branches. Are the trees too close to some of that building? No, Tom's not here.
Yes.
So they probably need to be handled too.
Yeah, they already have been.
Well, they have
So
been?
part of
Okay.
that, when that damage happened, yes, we were taking care of the trees because that was a big issue.
Other questions or comments?
My only comment is that I thought this North Shore Exteriors did a really nice job in their
They did.
proposal. And thankfully, I was able to see pictures from them, and I was like, oh yeah, we certainly do. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying that I really appreciated North Shore Exteriors bid.
I'm surprised you got 3 bids.
Matt Dalzio spent a lot of time on the phone trying to call these entities because it is hard to get 3 bids nowadays. And you really have to almost beg for bids, unfortunately.
Just to kind of echo what Christie said, I thought I was gonna have to drive out there and take a look at it. And I realized the pictures were there. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Any other,
Out there and take a look at it anyway.
Yeah. Go on out, hang out with the guys.
other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll do roll call, please.
Davis,
Yes.
Janat,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloff.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
motion carried.
You know, based on the agendas that we get during the course of the month, buildings and grounds, you guys do a lot of heavy lifting. I really appreciate the commitment. By the time it gets here, it's been thoroughly vetted. Just want to acknowledge the work that you put into it. It seems like you must be meeting pretty regularly.
Well, all the hard work's been done by the time we get there. Just have to go over it. So you better think. Young lady right here, Katie.
Yeah, she cracks the whip on us.
Yep.
I'm willing to bet that you just don't take it at face value, that you ask probably pretty darn good questions.
No, they ask a lot of questions.
Katie, you want to take the next one?
Sure. So the next one in your packet is a budget amendment related to the jail commissary. This is for $2,500 to cover the checks that are being cut. So when we budget in these different funds, obviously we're estimating revenue and we're estimating expenses, and sometimes we may just fall short. Within this fund, the cash is there to support this amendment. We need to amend the budget so that we're reflecting the true cash so that the transactions are all kosher at the end of it.
That the Board of Commissioners authorizes a budget amendment in the amount of $2,500 to the 595 commissary fund.
I'll second.
Opening up to questions or comments?
I had a
Please.
question. So again, these are not intuitive to me, so I just have some, just some basic questions. And so it says to the jail commissary fund. So is the money coming from the jail commissary or is it going to the jail commissary?
Kelly, do you want to take that question?
Sorry, I don't,
These are great questions.
okay.
Don't need to apologize.
This is money that flows through the commissary. It's not coming from the general fund. So last year when we budgeted, we just budgeted short. This year, when you see the budget, you'll see that we budgeted a little higher. So they're spending a little bit more money. Instead of spending 6,000 to 7,000, they're spending more like 8,000 to 9,000, but it's all money coming from the jail and they cover it. It's all covered through the jail. If that makes
So
sense.
it's revenues and
It's revenues in and
expenditures
expenditures out.
jail.
Okay, so you're saying that it's just going from the jail commissary revenue to the jail commissary expenditure line? I'm just not, I apologize, I'm just not
So
understanding.
when we spend money, we cannot spend it over budget. So our budget line says we only have $6,000 in there.
Okay,
Okay.
and that's.
So
in-
I want to raise that because now we have more money in the jail commissary. We have more like $8,000 to $9,000 in there.
Okay,
So all I'm doing is asking you to amend that budget so we can spend that money. Otherwise, the auditors were going to give you.
I understand that and I appreciate that and I get that part.
Right.
I'm just not understanding where it's coming from and where it's going to.
Inmates.
It's all inmates. It's all jail.
Inmates.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing's coming from the general fund. It's all for the inmates.
Commissary is stuff that the jail buys and then the inmates buy from them.
Yep.
So it's getting
So it's
paid for.
Constantly flowing.
It's just the number of what they want to carry as stock needs to be higher.
Okay.
So a family member, something.
To jail commissary.
Correct. So yeah,
That
the
was
auditors,
my-
okay, the auditors
That's
have
all I
made
wanted to
note.
know. Where is it coming from and where is it going? So
It's all
jail
within the
commissary-
jail.
Jail commissary. That's all I wanted to know. I understand the jail commissary. I understand, that process.
Mhm.
I would just want to know. And I think we figured that out. Thank you.
And Kelly, the monies that are in that fund, they're restricted to a specific use, is that right?
That is correct.
And this will qualify as a,
Correct.
Okay, that was just my question.
no, good questions. You're in your first year as a commissioner, everything we bring in front of you is new. So don't apologize for asking the questions. I'll reprimand you for apologizing.
Noted.
Okay. Geez, I can't remember if we have a motion or not.
Yeah, we did.
Second.
Okay,
You're really good with
all right. Any other questions or comments?
Moving it.
I believe that is a roll call.
Janai,
Yes.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yep.
Sauer,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
motion carried.
Katie, just a very quick question on that subject, though. $2,500, wouldn't that have been within your ability to make that decision?
So the reason that it has to come before you is because it's affecting the bottom line of the budget. And according to the General Appropriations Act that you adopt with the budget, no budget amendment affecting the bottom line is within my discretion. It's only in yours. I can do budget adjustments, so I can move expenses among each other as long as the bottom line is not affected. This is affecting the bottom line, and so even if it's $1, you have to approve it as the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. Want to introduce the next subject?
Absolutely. So the next one on your agenda here is approval of the Jail Control Board emergency repairs. I do see the undersheriff out here today who can go into details as to why this was done. But what you're doing today is affirming the emergency action taken by the undersheriff to fix the Jail Control Board, which was malfunctioning within the jail. At the end of the day, this is an officer safety issue. And so the approval was made to fix that sooner than later. Quite frankly, it's just not something that could have waited for the board to approve later because of the officer safety issue.
Is there any questions from you, Sheriff?
No. I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that the Board of Commissioner affirms the emergency action taken by the undersheriff and administrator to accept the proposal from Johnson Controls for Jail Control Board repairs in the amount of $14,576.81 with funds available in the 213 jail fund.
Davis, second.
Again, any questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Markey,
Yes.
Nye,
Yes.
Roloffs.
Yes.
Sauer,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Janai,
Yes,
motion carried.
very good. All right, let's move into commissioner reports. Krisky, let's start with you this week.
Sure. So I went to the Lake Township meeting the other night. I did talk about the lighthouse to that group. And so what I reported to them wasn't quite right because I was updated today and that's changed slightly. I also talked to them about materials management. And as far as the rest, I only made it to half the meeting. It was before the July 4th holiday. And so by the time I got there, all the other department heads had gone and I gave my report. So that's all.
Questions or comments? Very good. Linda, I'm going to jump back to you, please.
Sure. I had AP review, agenda review. We had a building and grounds meeting. We've discussed a couple of the items that we went over. Additional conversations we had were about the irrigation system on our campus. The sheriff's area is irrigated. This lower area is not. Our maintenance, Mr. Mauer was able to get us some estimates. So the discussion really revolved around, should we do it? If we do it, should it be a phased approach or should we just do the whole project? At the end of the day, I think we needed a little more information to move forward with that, if I remember correctly. Another conversation we had was about the maintenance barn. in a perfect world with unlimited funding, we would probably take it down and move it to a different location. We're not in a perfect world with unlimited funding, so we just talked about what the, you know, the minimum repairs would be to keep our equipment protected and use that barn to the best of its ability. So, and we were continuing discussions on that as well. I attended a court security meeting with Commissioner Sauer. Under Sheriff Hubers was there, and he walked us through the use of the CPAP machines to revive people should we unfortunately need to do that. And then we went over a couple other court security documents. And I think that's a required meeting that we have to have every so often. Every quarter, yep. So I attended Central Wellness Executive Meeting. The two, you know, big topics were the PIHP bid out and a very long discussion regarding Northern Lakes. You know, Northern Lakes is not our CMH, but what happens with them will have impact on us. They are in our region. And our full board meeting is this Thursday. And then last night I attended the Village of Benzonia. They appointed a new trustee, Tony Flynn. She has been the treasurer in the Village of Benzonia for, I'm gonna say pushing 40 years.
Wow.
And so she's a trustee now. She did have to resign her role as deputy treasurer to accept that position. The village is looking into, I don't know what else to call them, but the little middle of the road guys up by the roadhouse to slow down traffic. MDOT was able to put up some signs urging people to use the crosswalks, but alas, not everybody is yielding to those. So they're thinking if they take MDOT's recommendation, you see them in other areas. They're at the center line, and when people are coming up the hill, it would slow them down a little bit. And then they discussed, they've got on order about 18 new trees to put in the village. And that's gonna go in the fall. And that's what I have.
Good report. Any questions?
A question, the Northern Lakes, I feel like I've heard a little bit about that. And that's something in Traverse City, correct? And it's just mismanagement of the,
Yeah, they're having forensic audits right now done on their books. And there's, I think it was reported in the paper, a $9 million shortfall. And as a region, we have funding that the way that our community mental health operation works as a region, if some entities fall short, the region makes them whole. This is just, it's been identified that they're not working the way that they're supposed to. And so system changes need to be implemented for them to work within their budgets. And we're waiting for those to be implemented and for the forensic audits. Did you want to add anything to that, Tim?
Yeah.
Trying to be very cautious here.
Yes, she's being a little reserved. Northern Lakes, there are 5 counties that CMH is. Leelanau, Grand Traverse, Wexford, Mississauga, and then there's Roscommon, I think. But there's 5 counties involved. Basically, my understanding is that they've been in the red since they've been in the region. And the region's been propping them up every year. That's a problem. All the other CMHs have been contributing to our, I guess you could call it, rainy day fund. But this one's always been using it and not contributing to it. I mean, so,
so
I mean,
yes,
it's,
we're seeing
And improve, I mean, to the extent of approving their next budget in the red with raises.
yeah, mismanagement, I do. That's what the papers really outline. I mean, and Ron is 100% right, what they're doing directly affects our CMH as well. Both in funding, because it hurts us in the region. And then I don't think they're doing a great job of patient care. When I say that, I'm not saying individually, I'm just saying because they don't have the funding right. Our CMH goes above and beyond, does like preventative, which not a lot of CMHs do. We also target the mild to moderate, which not all CMHs do. So when they're not getting treated there, if they can get treated here, they come here too. So I mean, it affects our volume as well.
And the bigger picture is when there are efforts to privatize, taking away local control of our community mental health systems. We have one between Manistee and Benzie County that's run very well and does, but other entities who don't run well make that look like a good option. And that hurts us. It's
Mhm.
hard to defend or to make their fiscal scenario look right because it's not. And so it creates a really good narrative for why changes should be made, which is unfortunate for the entities who do what they do well.
And so that works into your piece where you said the other day is that they were trying to push it out, so that isn't even an option. And so a better way for the PHIP is to at least have that on the table, so CMHs like ours can still opt for that instead of the privatization. Is that?
No,
or is
this
it gonna
is,
be
no,
across
this
the
is a
board?
private, the PIHP bid out is a privatization effort. They're not even allowing the current CMHs to make bids on these prepaid in-house
Plan.
plans. They are going to be bid out to private insurance companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Priority Health. So the community mental health right now would be a partner to the insurance companies. And
Basically replacing the region.
yeah,
That's ouch.
And the CMHs would still be there, but the fear is, or what historically the private insurance companies would do is cherry pick their clients and leave the expensive hard ones to the CMHs, which then are funded partially by the counties, which then would come back to us to help fund. Because that's all they're doing is taking care of the hard, expensive cases.
and we would also lose our funding for our partnerships in the jail. We would lose our funding for our mild to moderate care that we get, the opioid house, the substance abuse house, what was it? Behavioral health home, opioid health home that was turned into the substance use health home. Efforts like that would be gone. There would not be funding for those. So it's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions,
Okay.
comments? And just staying on that theme, at the last meeting, you had asked us to contact stake reps to put in our 2 cents worth on this. Any feedback on that? Has there been any movement that you're aware of?
I mean, there are rumblings that I think there's going to be a discussion about RCMH filing a lawsuit to challenge it.
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, this goes against state statute.
And is there any updates regarding the West Benzie, what do they call it? West Benzie planning, zoning? Heard what I'm talking about.
There was a meeting last night. We had a conflicting meeting at the exact same time. I read the minutes of the previous meeting. My understanding is they had 4 applicants for a zoning administrator. Is that what you're wondering about?
Yeah, right.
The minutes that I read said that they were leaning towards separating duties to a part-time zoning administrator and a part-time zoning enforcement person. But then that meeting ultimately was rescheduled to last night, and I did not attend as I was at my village meeting.
Okay. We'll get an update probably the next time through. Very good. If there's nothing else for Rhonda, Gary?
Can you do something?
You're up.
So she covered pretty much everything I went to except the health department.
All right, Dave?
Okay.
No, go ahead.
We are down 2 sanitarians. One had shoulder surgery, rotator cuff, and some other issues. One of them hurt his back. So their inspections on the well and septic things are pushing over 2 weeks to get anything through. And like Eric said, I've made this suggestion before. You're a real estate person, please apply for that at the point of when you list the property. Then you'll have it. You're gonna recoup it anyway. And it just makes sense. But right now, there are 2 to 3 weeks getting this stuff done, so I think Dan is helping them out too.
Aren't there only 3 there? They down to 1?
I think there's, well, Eric, if you're counting Eric, I think there's 2 in Leelanau, and then if Dan's helping down here, there's probably 2 down here now. That good. Good. Then they talked about the measles outbreak, which confined to 1 family, I believe. 1 group, so I haven't heard any more about that. Around the covered buildings and grounds, Betsy Valley Trail, we approved the Ironman race. And the brew to brew that the Friends put on, that race, pocketed around $8,000, so they're very happy with the outcome of that. Also went to their, Friends meeting, I think it was the same night. Their big thing is they wanted to put new furnishings in the Trailhead house down here. Trying to figure out who owns the building. The village thinks that the county owns it. The county has nothing. And I think the best thing they come up with is that the DNR owns it. They lease it to the village to do maintenance and stuff like that a little bit, or they pay them a stipend, I don't know. So we're still kind of looking for the paperwork. Not sure where it is, but
She's sitting right there. Register of Deeds,
he's got it.
if there is any.
Well, there should have been a contract that we could have found through the clerk's office, and Tammy should have had it. There's not, then I don't think one exists with the county. I don't think the county has anything there, so, anyway. We'll do it, yes, ma'am.
And just to clarify, this is the trailhead in Beulah or
Building in Beulah.
the building in
Yeah,
Beulah? Okay.
Dr. Orr, I think. Has got his name on there. I don't know how it was built. I don't know. So, anyway, I'm sure because the DNR owns the trail, they probably do have an agreement of some kind. Where Scott's been gone, so we can't get a hold of him. Went to the court security, went to Joyfield and Blaine. Joyfield discussed the trash day, and they're talking how to fund it. And Blaine, heard you about something. They have a case pending through with the planning commission. At the Rodzell property, want to do a cluster house project, which is admissible by the zoning. The neighbors are all upset. And the legal fees for the hearing was $1,134. He had to pay like $1,500 to have meeting, and I think they're checking on how that seemed pretty high for somebody to set, but that was before my time. Well, that was all the exciting stuff. I guess that's about it. I think, what is it, is this Saturday? Oh, we gotta get straight. Saturday coming up is the thing over in Thompsonville.
No, it's the 11th. So it's
11th?
Friday.
Okay. Next Friday?
No, this Friday, but it's
Okay.
Friday, not Saturday.
Next week's too
The
short.
tarp ribbon cutting,
If you're interested, I can't remember, 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock,
11 o'clock.
11 a.m. If you're interested, come check it out. That's all I got.
Gary, do you remember the date of the Ironman? September 14th? And is the trail the last entity to give permission, or are they still waiting on permission from others?
The only, everybody else has give permission and all of my villages and stuff. The only reason we held up, we couldn't get the stuff to download. The insurance and stuff. Nothing's really changed.
Any other questions for Gary? Dave?
The only thing I've gone to was the Benzie bus meeting. They had a presentation from Maynard Consterison on doing a audit of their policies and procedures, just to try to make everything run more smoothly.
Anything else?
That
Questions or comments?
I've got one. Did they happen to ask, for some recommendations in the button? In that Bannister, and whatever you call them. Was that asked if they followed up on any of them? One of them was the camera footage, how long they keep it when the drivers come in and count their cash boxes and stuff. Didn't know if that was brought up, if the management had addressed any of that or not.
that would be one of the things they would review, but
Okay.
they just had the presentation of what they would do for them. The next meeting, they're gonna vote whether to hire them to do it or not. So that would come in that report.
No, they're
Yeah.
just recommendations. I was just curious if they followed through with them.
Yeah.
Anything else? Tim?
Homestead Township Board, Dollar General is looking to obtain a permit to build on the southeast corner of US 31 and Marshall Road. There's currently a self-storage place there.
Marshall Road comes down where the storage buildings are now.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, kind of like, a
By the
little bit
Bailey
further
property.
east from Loom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the board, township board discussed BSNA moving to the cloud and how they were gonna handle it. They have not made a decision yet, but I do suspect that they will be moving all of their BSNA stuff to the cloud. Networks Northwest Council of Government. We discussed the formula that's currently used to calculate the dollar amount that each of the 10 counties would contribute to Networks Northwest annually. I think Katie just got that just recently.
I just got it yesterday.
25 years ago, the amount designated was 55,000 for all the counties total to contribute. That was to support a local match from an annual grant from the Economic Development Administration. 25 years ago, it hasn't changed. The grant amount has gone up and the formula is basically weighted from each county's SEVs and population. And just we're talking about changing the formulas to update the numbers. We're also looking to see if it makes sense to update the total dollar amount to match what the Economic Development Administration grant is, because it's gone up considerably since then too. Networks Northwest full board meeting, we had a presentation of their audit, which I'd already seen and presented here from their finance committee, and we're starting the CEO's review process. Did accounts payable, buildings and grounds. Central Wellness Networks Community Services Relations Subcommittee. Patrick, the Director of Access and Emergency Services, walked the committee through how petitions are processed and followed. Like if someone petitions and says, hey, you're crazy, they don't just automatically lock you up and take you away. They actually have a process. They have to determine, make sure you actually probably are. You have to get courts, permission. You have to get a judge's sign things, and it's actually rather involved. They also walked us through how inmates, once they're incarcerated, are referred to and receive treatment from Central One. That's actually, there's lots of different entry points, lots. The Northern Michigan Regional Entity Substance Use Disorder and Oversight Committee There's one request for Benzie County from Benzie Area Youth. And the advisory committee did recommend that they approve that at the full board. With approving of the Benzie Area Youth request, Benzie has a projected remaining balance of about $180,000 in our substance use liquor tax fund. Just to put that in perspective, Benzie we contribute about $67,000 a year to that fund. So we have a very healthy balance. Any questions?
I got one for you right now. What kind of cost does the administrative cost on that fund? They take any of that for
The region?
entity? Yeah. They must. Just curious what it might be.
I don't think they do it all. I don't see any admin costs when I get the request through. None.
I'm on there. Okay. Great.
Gary, I'm fairly confident there's no admin costs from the region on the liquor tax funding. The region's funded other ways.
Oh, they have more. Okay. I wasn't sure. Thank you.
The liquor tax oversight is just a small part of what they do.
Alrighty, thank you.
Good. Any other questions or comments for Tim? Bob?
I did not have a scheduled meeting since our last meeting.
I am so envious.
All right, well, let me give you some updates. I've been working really closely with the Benzie Chamber and trying to begin formalizing this organizational structure for the Economic Development Corporation. I think we've got some great people at the table. As I've said before, you know, that first year is going to be all about organization. And the success of this is going to be about who they hire. And I want to be clear, it's about who they hire. We have 2 people on that board. So it would be a 9-member board. So we have 2 votes. We are a member of it. We are not in the leadership driving that process any longer. I have asked, it's come to my attention that Dr. Kuipers has had some challenges getting to some meetings at the health department. And I've asked Gary to make contact with him and find out what his commitment can be going forward. And I think I'll probably get some feedback in the next week or 2 on that. Staying on that theme, Scott Harrison, the chair over at Maples or DHHS, did make me aware that Dr. Schaefer has given his resignation or is in the process of it, and his last day would be the end of August. Have you gotten anything, Katie? Amy, have you gotten anything? So that's all verbal right now, but I have reason to believe that's in the process.
It's in the process.
And in fact, you probably have something similar with VA too.
Correct.
So we do need to post that position. I know that we want to get the formality in, but I'm telling you, it's coming. And Scott's actively trying to recruit some qualified people to fill that slot. Katie and I have had a conversation, not a deep conversation, but conversation about a conflict of interest policy and statement. And I've asked her to explore that. We've never been asked to sign a conflict of interest statement. And that probably would be a good idea. So we're exploring it. That'll be brought to the board to be that decision to be made. But I want to let you know that that request has been made. And I have gotten more than one call regarding the public's inability to reach the drain commissioner. And based on some research that I've done and some history that I've seen in being on the board, we do have the authority to ask the drain commissioner to come in and explain himself about what his duties are, his accessibility, etc. And he would have to respond to that request. Now, I'd want to dig deeper into that, and Katie, I'm asking you now to do that, but this is a result of more than just one phone call. This is multiple calls I've had saying they're having a hard time reaching them. We've given them Craig Dixon's contact information. Craig contracts with the county also. He's kind of under the supervision of the drain commissioner, but he contracted directly with the county for monitoring water levels. And Craig has done a great job of being responsive. I mean, the feedback I get is within 24 hours, he's responding. So I don't know when it's appropriate to have that conversation, but I believe we need to have it.
I have also received emails regarding people's asking me to compel him to return calls, and I simply responded that as an elected official, I have no authority to make him reach out or return calls, but it is, I have been contacted as well with concerns.
So with your permission, I'd like to instruct administration to determine what, if any, influence we can have in calling the drain commissioner in to report to us.
Okay.
I'm not saying that we can take action, but I believe somewhere along the line, I've learned that we can require elected officials to come in and they have to meet that requirement to explain their activities. And in this particular case, I'd like them to respond specifically as to these complaints.
Do we have a list
Of names of people?
of the complaint?
I could put that list together, yes.
He has been, as far as I know, to every Parks and Rec meeting we've had. So he has been responsive there. I wouldn't have any trouble asking him to come in and talk. As an elected official, you are responsible for the community that elected, so you need to, they say, I can't do anything, at least make a call back. That, I've always had issues when things are not being responded.
Edie, have you had has anybody from the community contacted you directly on this subject?
Yes.
We all got one email, I think.
Yeah, and there was more than that. And then I've also received FOIA requests regarding information too.
Does anybody, can we discuss any objections you may have to us exploring what, if any, role we have in trying to get answers to this? Because I'm uncomfortable not responding to the public. I'll bet every one of you return all your calls, whether you feel like you want to or not. I'm willing to bet every elected official does. I think everybody ought to be held to the same standard. If I'm wrong, tell me now.
I would want to be certain we're within our rights to make that kind of request before we move forward.
Well, if he's elected.
Well, we ran into a circumstance without getting into specifics, that we learned that we could call in an elected official to explain an allegation. And that's where I'm drawing my information from. Is anybody uncomfortable directing administration to at least get the answer to that question of what, or if we have any authority or responsibility to do that?
Well worth the effort. How about you? Because you gotta do all the work.
Well, it's gonna
email
be
to
called
legal.
the attorney. All right, so Katie, will you take that as a direction, please?
Email's already drafted.
Any questions or comments about my report? If not, Katie?
Sure. So a few things going on in our office. Yesterday, we had our first benefits committee meeting. We did have a few folks in attendance with Shelley and I. I think it was a great meeting. It lasted about 90 minutes. And we really just went through what the county offers, what surrounding counties are offering, and kind of asked some questions as to what they believe their staff wants out of their benefits plan and our benefits agent. I think it was a great meeting. Tammy was there. She shakes her head. Yes, it was a good meeting. I do have a packet handout which really goes through our benefits, that I will happily send to you guys as a comparison document as you're, hearing feedback from folks. So I think that'll be really helpful for you. We're having another benefits committee meeting next Thursday. Anyone is welcome to attend. Next Thursday, we will be looking a little deeper into the renewals of the benefits. And then they will ultimately come to you for approval later on this summer. But really good information happening there. We talked about maybe some training that the staff would like to see. So we're going to work on scheduling additional training touch points with the staff as well that just kind of educates them on, the benefits and what there is to offer and how they can play a role as a consumer of health insurance and other healthcare benefits. We also are looking at doing open enrollment August 27th and 28th. So we're going to do 2 half-day open enrollments. Great feedback from the benefits committee. A lot of times we do them on a day that doesn't work for a lot of our staff because of court and other things. So we're kind of breaking that up so that we can be more available for our staff for open enrollment. So more to come on that, but I can send out that little presentation that we went through. Really good information. One point of note in the presentation, the comparable counties, and it shows the contribution to benefits, and we're the only one that has no contribution for premium on behalf of the employee outside of Leelanau, who is always on its own island when it comes to those sorts of things. We're working on recruitment in our office, one position for our office, as you know, as well as equalization technician and other positions on our website. Please go to our website, encourage folks to go to our website and look at the available jobs. We do have a couple of interviews scheduled next week for the assistant in our office specifically. And Tammy and Rhonda have graciously agreed to sit down with the applicant with myself and Shelley to hopefully find the next great person to join our team. Grounds maintenance, Kyle and I will be meeting with the Conservation District tomorrow to just kind of talk to them and pick their brain about what the campus could look like. We've talked about the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee now a couple of times about changes to the campus as far as irrigation and trees and shrubbery and fertilizer and all those things. And so the Conservation District, John Troop is going to meet us over there tomorrow, just kind of talk about those things. And the Crystal Lake Watershed group, there's a gentleman on that group who has also agreed to sit down with Kyle and I. He's a master gardener, but like one step above master gardener. Apparently there's like an elite master gardener. I think
Master Gardener +1.
I don't know. He's like he's above a master gardener. But he's agreed to sit down and just, let us pick his brain. I told him we're not looking at doing this grand, landscape architect project, but we just want to make sure we're being good stewards of the campus. So that's all coming. Tonight is the Tax Limitation Advisory Committee at 5 o'clock. It'll be in this room. Anyone is welcome to attend. We'll also be streaming that online, just like we do with these meetings. So that should be a good meeting tonight. This Friday is the Regional Materials Management meeting at 1 o'clock, and it is here in Benzie County. So if anyone would like to attend the Regional Materials Management Committee meeting this Friday at 1 o'clock in this room, will be the meeting that will also be recorded as well. And those recordings are located on the websites. As you all probably have seen in your email, I sent you out the actuarial from MERS, a bit disappointing. Tony will be here September 9th. To go through this as soon as he could come. And so that gives you lots of time to review and come up with questions for Tony regarding the actuarial. But it's disappointing, as we can all imagine. Just a reminder that July 19th is the scrap tire event in Thompsonville. So if anyone has any scrap tires, July 19th is your day. Also regarding recycling, I just want to put a plug out there that on our website, we have a search feature regarding getting rid of and disposing of things. And so in that search feature, if you have a mattress or an old computer or what have you, you can search those items and that search function will tell you where you can dispose of those items. So if we don't have an event coming up, if you type in there a mattress, it's going to pull up. You can take it to Bay Area Recycling or what have you. So I just want to encourage that search feature in there. We get a lot of calls of where can I take my batteries and that search feature has all the various locations where you can take it in the region. So just pushing that out there. It's a pretty good search feature. As people call, we add more keywords in there. So we're always expanding that search as well. So if something's not in there now, but you've called and your neighbor have called about those items, we're trying to add those items in there too. So it's a pretty encompassing search feature within there. There's also a sign up as well for the Scrap Tire event on that same page right on our website. So just encouraging you to go to that website and also point folks to that website as well. And then finally, public volunteer opportunities. Again, the Board of Appeals for the Benzie-Leelanau Health Department, we're still seeking applicants for that. We've received a 0. Economic Development, Benzie Transportation Authority, and upcoming DHHS Maples Board. So if folks want to be involved, please have them send an application to our office so that we can get that process moving forward. Any questions? Oh, and then hold on, Shelley sent me a message. We've also had 2 new hires for 911, as well as the detective secretary position has been filled up the hill. So things are moving along and we're getting a lot of great new people on the team.
Questions?
I do. Katie, I think you mentioned at one point in one of your conferences that you attended that other counties are looking at different options to MERS.
Yep.
What, just so I understand correctly, for the folks who have retired and receive their benefit for their retirement, we're married to that through MERS, right? We can't change. So any future changes would have to be, you can't take that. I don't know how to ask this correctly. You can't still provide the benefit and disassociate from MERS and make that fiscal commitment with somebody else, right? There's no way that that can be undone.
Yeah, so essentially we're really married to that defined benefit as it stands. There is ways out of it, but they're pretty dramatic. So you're really married to that. What you would look at is either new hires, or you could require those that are on the DC plan to move over as well. But again, that's pretty drastic too for those employees, but that option is there. The cleanest way to do it would be for new hires to move away from MERS, and you can offer it to others as well. That would be the cleanest and, less stressful way as far as an employee standpoint would go. But there is ways to close it. There are other agencies who have said nope and they move everything. But that's a pretty drastic move for employees if you wanted to do that.
And if other counties are doing this, there are options out there that are desirable that make it worth taking the time to make that change.
So Kelly and I need to connect. We've briefly talked about it, but we haven't explored fully other options. But yes, there's other retirement options out there that other places are using. There's lots of different, options in the world. And so Kelly and I need to just really sit down and muddle through those different options. I did pop an email out to our listserv and just said, hey, who's everybody looking at? To try to get some names specifically, because, I'm limited to what I know in my career versus other folks. So we're trying to explore that and bring ideas back to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the last 60 days, you were actually given the green light for you and Kelly to explore.
That's correct. Yep.
And were you starting to say something?
I was gonna say, I thought new employees weren't on MERS anyway.
Yes, they are. You stayed with MERS. You just created a new plan, the defined contribution plan. So you moved away from DB, went to DC. If you wanted to move fully from MERS, you would have the available and opportunity to push all the DCs to that new agency. I'm just saying it could be drastic in the sense of, employees having to change, right? But other counties have found that the employees have wanted to change because the new agency was able to give better returns. And so the employees wanted to change that were on those DC plans.
And isn't that going to be one of our primary questions, is why the return that they know is so far below?
It's all about their
Marketed.
smoothing effect.
The smoothing.
Remember, it's the smoothing. And I've noted in my email about, the market rate of return is over 7. They're using just over 3. It's all that smoothing that they put into place
And do
not many years
do
ago.
the other companies use the same sort of smoothing?
That's MERS specific.
It's MERS, okay.
All MERS. Yeah, there's a lot of history with MERS that I've learned in the recent time from other counties who are also exploring this. There's a lot of strong feelings. There's a lot of history with MERS and how it's changed over the years. And there's a lot of, it used to be very much about the employers and the employees, and now it's very much not. And so, yeah, there's a lot of backstory there.
Just the expression smoothing defines for you the fact that it avoids the peaks and valleys otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So if they weren't doing a smoothing effect, they probably would be using 7%, but next year it could be 3%.
Correct.
And that's why they use that 5-year smoothing.
Yep.
I don't have so much of a problem with. What I have is the low expectations they have of themselves and return on investment for employees that are saving towards retirement.
Yeah, it's an interesting. And the other thing too, you got to remember with the actuarial is really it's old data. It's not the most recent. It's older data they're using. And you look back in history and where we were at as our economy. And I expected what happened. I really did, because based on the timing and where we were at, I expected it to be down again this year. I would not anticipate the percentage going up for 2 more years based on the years that they're using to establish what they're doing.
You probably are using a 2-year look back, I would
Mhm.
guess.
Yeah.
And as far as, I'm glad that you guys are gonna do some review of it. At the end of the day, this is about the employees.
Correct.
And if the employees say to us, you know what, we're comfortable with where we're at for a variety of reasons,
Mm-hmm.
then okay. But there may be some employees out there that are saying, particularly those that are just getting started, that may say, you know what, my expectations are higher.
Yeah.
You know, if someone is in an IRA and they're getting twice what I'm getting,
Right.
why is that?
Right.
When I've talked to MERS about it, quite frankly, I found them to be slightly condescending. It's, well, this is what it is, and we need to be conservative, and basically, glad you asked the question, but you leave it to us.
Get used
Well,
to it.
and that is the reaction that a lot of other folks have gotten when they question MERS, is they get a very condescending reaction. And I think that's what's driving this exploration of other options, because counties are not getting the answers, and that's unfortunate.
I know the 8+ years that I've sat on this board, Gary, many, many times has tried to get them to explain why they get the returns they're getting, and I don't think you've ever gotten a great explanation.
No,
Well,
that's what you can understand.
they had a coffee factory in Bill or something on her property, raised coffee, and then I still, actually, the board is made up of MERS and basically people that are on the system, right?
Yeah, so it used to be, it was a member, my understanding is it was member-based. You voted on the members, and it was formed more like a pool in the sense of the MMRMA, where there's like a county representative. And it sounds like it's shifted a little away from that, and it's more managed at a higher level, state level, which has then taken away some of that personal connection to the lower municipalities. So that's my very brief understanding of how the history was. The other thing that I found interesting is they tell us what we're paying every year from a MERS contribution. This year, they want to lower our contribution by a lot of money, but then next year they want to raise it to more than what we're paying now. Okay. And we're required to pay that amount. It's a flat amount based on the DB. And so, we're paying 98 to 99,000 a month now. They want to lower it to 84,000 a month next year, but then go back to 95,000 the following year. And I'm like, well, if we're smoothing, why is there such an ebb and flow in my monthly amount? Shouldn't this be a little smoother? But I these are the questions I ask.
You can ask Tony, but good luck.
Oh,
So September 9th, you have lots of time to come up with really great questions.
And again, at the end of the day, this is really an employee's decision. This is their retirement plan we're talking about. Right. Any other questions for Katie? Katie, a couple of other things. With this new admin that you're looking at hiring, is there any changes in their responsibilities or duties that you're looking at making?
No, the job description has not changed.
Okay. And I heard you talking about this campus landscaping.
Mm-hmm.
You got this garden club group that keeps your flowers. Are they involved in that discussion?
Not yet.
Okay, is it your plan to have them involved?
Yeah, depending on how we're moving forward, are we gonna do trees? Are we gonna do flower beds? We haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
But if we're looking at more flower beds, then absolutely, we'd ask them to be part of those conversations and pulling those weeds and keeping those things looking pretty.
Because I think that's a volunteer group, isn't it?
Yeah, we buy the plants and then they come and, pull weeds and water them and those sorts of things,
Okay.
but we buy the plants.
Okay. There's nothing else. You have in your packet the presentation of correspondence. I'll move to the last public comment.
Eric Van Duzen again, Benzonia. I thank you for being very transparent in the motion, disclosing the $585,000 you're paying or our insurers paying to settle the motorcycle accident with a patrol vehicle that occurred 2 years ago. I'm still at a loss as to, how that deputy was not, any other person, in my humble opinion, in my experience working for a criminal offense attorney, would have been charged with moving violation, causing serious bodily injury in a case like this. That's my understanding. He didn't even receive a traffic citation. I don't understand that. I still believe that the board's motion to go into closed session was deficient when you went in to discuss that, because it didn't indicate you were discussing a written legal opinion. While you were in there, I sent you the court opinion from the Court of Appeals, that published opinion that addresses that specific issue. And no one in the public knows whether or not you applied with the OMA or you didn't, because no one knows if you actually considered a written legal opinion. You can't just go into a closed session to discuss willy-nilly opinions of your attorney that aren't written. And I think that's the purpose of that requirement. If you really were considering a written legal opinion from your attorney in that closed session, then you could fix the deficiency in your motion right now. You could recreate your motion and say that, yes, we absolutely made a motion to go into closed session, to discuss a written legal opinion instead of just a legal opinion. To follow up on Commissioner Janot's question about Benzonia and Platte Township's Joint Planning Commission, it was actually the joint boards, all 10 members, 5 from each board, met last night, and they voted to hire Mary Pitcher as a code enforcement officer and planning official and blight enforcement. And another person, his first name is Bob, I forget his last name. He was clearly the most qualified candidate as the zoning administrator. They did not make any decisions about what they're going to pay them. They didn't make any decisions on job descriptions or how many hours they're going to work. So my argument was that they, throughout this entire process, been putting the cart before the horse, even by putting an advertisement out for this position without either of those two boards ever authorizing anyone to do so. And as unilateral board members on the Township Board of Benzonia just decided to do that on their own to advertise for this position, and we got where we are. So I'm kind of irritated by that process, but yeah, I don't know if we would have got other candidates for that position if we would actually advertised. We're looking for 2 people to fit a 20-hour a week position. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? If not, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Hey.
Any opposed? I believe we're going to try to do a group photo.
Yes.